it's Clemmy from the NARM Clinic. So this week is International Stress Awareness Week, and I wanted to come on here and just have a chat to you about what stress is, how it can impact us and the way our body functions, but also most importantly to give you some simple tips for you to take away with you to help you manage and reduce the stress in your life. So stress is often quite misunderstood, I think. It's misunderstood to be just a psychological problem related to feeling anxious or depressed or feeling low, but actually it's important that we realise that stress comes from many other sources as well and can have a massive impact on our physical health as well as our mental health. So we have psychological stresses such as work, high workload, maybe long hours, relationships, financial worries, but we also have physiological stress. So this stress comes from illness, from injury, also smoking, alcohol, pollution. Also too much intense exercise can actually put extra stress on our body. Another one is nutrient deficiency. So if we're deficient in any nutrients or we're not eating a balanced enough diet, then this can actually put extra stress on our body. And the last one is imbalanced blood sugar levels and energy levels, and I'm going to come on to that a little bit later. So what I wanted to explain is that, interestingly, our bodies can't distinguish between the two. So can't distinguish between psychological and physiological. And the reaction in our body is exactly the same. So we release adrenaline, which is our kind of fight or flight response, and also a hormone, our stress hormone called cortisol. And this response is actually totally normal, this stress response, and it's actually very important and very protective mechanism for our bodies, and it saves us from oncoming danger. So for example, if you step out in front of a bus and you realise it's coming and you get that rush kind of adrenaline in your chest, and that makes you step back and you save yourself. So that's adrenaline, and what happens in that kind of stress response is that adrenaline releases stored glucose from our cells into our bloodstream so that we have that energy there readily available to fight or flight. And again, this is our kind of protective mechanism, and once that danger has then disappeared, the normal response is that our adrenaline and cortisol levels will come back down and should return to normal, and we carry on with our day again. However, we live in a society now where we are often under constant stress. So we rarely switch off because we have technology and our emails, and we're constantly being stimulated by things. So both psychologically and physically, we have that stimulation all the time, and we have that heightened sense of stress, which means that we're permanently in that fight or flight state, and also that our cortisol levels remain elevated. And what this also means is that our blood sugar levels also remain raised because we need that energy to fight or flight. Now, this in itself can lead to problems such as insulin resistance and perhaps type 2 diabetes. But what happens is if we don't use that stored glucose, so it's in our bloodstream, our body's very clever in the fact that it wants our blood sugar levels to remain in a certain range. So if we are not running away from a bus or saving ourselves if we're not fighting or flighting, and instead that we're perhaps sitting at our desks or at home, and we don't use up that circulating glucose, our body needs to put that somewhere. And rather than put it back where it came from, it actually deposits it around our middle and deposits it as visceral fat. And this may be because actually in times of stress and danger, our body needs to protect our vital organs. And this, we think, is why this is deposited in case that we're under attack, because our body can't function without our vital organs. So not only does stress impact our blood sugar levels and our weight, but two really important things is it can also trigger our body to down-regulate our immune system and our digestive system so that the energy can be used elsewhere for survival. Now, obviously this is helpful during times of stress because we don't need those in the short term when we're running away from danger. However, with prolonged stress, this can actually have a really big impact on our health. So from an immune system perspective, it can really impact our ability to fight off infection and colds. So if you're someone who struggles quite a lot with illness, get colds a lot or struggle to get rid of them, then perhaps this is something that relates to you. And from a digestive perspective, it can actually impact our ability to just digest our food effectively. So if we're under stress and not focusing on our food, or we're eating when we're in a stress environment, it can impact the release of enzymes and also acid in our digestive system, which helps us to break down our food. And this can lead to problems further down the digestive tract if we have undigested food, and it can lead to IBS type symptoms like bloating, gas, constipation, diarrhea, etc. So again, if that's something that you find that you experience in times of stress, then maybe that's something that relates to you. So what we also know in terms of how stress impacts the brain is that we think that chronic stress may actually be quite damaging and corrosive to the brain. And we think that it could cause our brain cell bodies to actually die and our connections in our brains to pull back. So it's obviously really important that we help to manage our stress. Now, so what can we do about it? So it's obviously not feasible for us to remove all our stress from our lives, and that's absolutely not what I'm going to recommend. But what we do need to do is we need to look at managing our stress and also counteracting the stress we are under and making sure that we're looking after ourselves. So what I like to use, the analogy is we need to look at our stress levels and our health a bit like a bank account. So we don't want to be spending more than we're putting in. And if we are spending more, we need to make sure that we're putting more in. So if you're having a particularly stressful week or a particularly stressful time in your life, then you need to make sure that you're doing more things to support yourself than perhaps you would normally do. So now the important bits. So I'm going to cover now 5 ways to help you reduce stress on your body. So the first one is making sure you're having a balanced intake of nutrients in your diet. Now, in that fight or flight state all the time, then we use up a lot of nutrients. It takes a lot of energy for our body to be in that state all the time and to produce those hormones as well. So we really want to make sure that we're eating a balanced diet, so getting our 5 a day in and having all the different nutrients that we need in order to make sure we're supporting the recovery and repair. Now, as I mentioned before, blood sugar levels, they can be really important as well to help reduce external stress on our body, because when we let our blood sugar levels drop too low, adrenaline is released, and that releases the stored glucose to get our blood sugar levels back up again. And obviously that's causing a stress on the body. So we need to make sure that we're balancing those blood sugar levels and balancing those energy levels to prevent that from happening. And ways that we can do that is having regular balanced meals, so not going for too long without having a meal. And having protein and healthy fats at each meal or snack as well can help us manage this. So for example, meat, fish, eggs, beans, pulses, lentils, nuts and seeds can be really good. So for example, if you have porridge in the morning, then adding some protein and healthy fats with some nuts and seeds over the top can be really helpful at managing those energy levels and also introducing some extra nutrients like some magnesium, which is important when we're stressed as well. Also making sure that we focus on the types of carbohydrates that we're eating. Now, we want to focus on the more complex carbohydrates that are broken down and digested slightly more slowly in our system. So these are things like our whole grains, so our brown rice, oats, vegetables, rather than our more quickly broken down and absorbed sugars, like our refined white breads and our sugary snacks as well. So coming on to more kind of lifestyle things, we want to make sure that we're removing any unnecessary stress. So as I said, we can't remove all stress, but anything that's not necessary, it's okay to say no sometimes. So if you're having a particularly busy week and you have lots of evening plans, it's okay to say, actually, no, I don't think I can do that. I need to take time for myself and I need to relax and get an early night and make sure that I am supporting my recovery. So prioritize you and prioritize your health. Now, kind of linked in with that as well is me time. So this is something I talk about a lot with my clients in clinic because I think it's something that we forego so much now. We're always so busy and giving everything to other people. So we need to make sure that we're giving ourselves enough care and attention. And if you can say no to a few evening things and just carve out a bit of time in the day for you, it can be really, really important at helping build resilience and reducing stress. So things like meditation. So I like the apps Calm and Headspace. I think they're really good and often recommend them to people. And just a 10-minute meditation and carving 10 minutes out in the day, I think can be quite easy, either in the morning, perhaps before you go to work, perhaps at lunchtime, or when you get home in the evening. Another one is spending time outside in nature. So there's been some research done that says that spending even just 20 minutes outside in a green space can really have a big impact on reducing our cortisol levels. So what I would suggest is go for a walk in your local park and don't take your phone or anything. Just go so there's no distraction and just take in your surroundings and the nature around you. And another one as well is reading a book. So perhaps in the evenings, put your phone away and take out a book and escape by reading a book. And another one, again, just another example, is having a nice bath. So perhaps getting some magnesium salts and relaxing in a nice bath with some candles can be really helpful. So I hope that's been useful and interesting for you, and I hope those tips will be helpful for you to help manage and reduce your stress. Thank you very much for listening and see you again soon.